The train hissed into the station at Silver Creek just as the gray winter sky surrendered to the heavy gloom of evening. Snow had been falling since noon, blanketing the frontier town in a hush of white, and the air bit with a sharpness that stung the lungs. Mei Lin stepped onto the wooden platform, her breath misting before her. She carried only a woven carpet bag that held the entirety of her life's possessions. A threadbare, gray coat was pulled tight over her shoulders, barely concealing the tattered hem of a traditional silk cheongsam that fluttered around her ankles, a ghost of the life she had left behind in San Francisco. Around her, the depot was a chaotic swirl of holiday movement. Children in woolen caps chased one another between stacks of crates. Merchants hauled boxes of dried apples and cinnamon sticks, and families embraced with voices thick with the joy of reunion. Somewhere in the distance, a fiddle scratched out a Christmas tune. Mei Lin stood still as the crowd thinned, one hand gripping the handle of her bag, the other clutching a crumpled telegram that had arrived 4 days ago. Arrangements altered. Circumstances prevent meeting obligations. 12 words that had upended her world. There was no explanation, no apology. Just those 12 words from a man named Horace Pembry, a miner-turned-landowner who had promised marriage and security in exchange for companionship. The platform emptied gradually until the station master began extinguishing the lamps against the encroaching night. Mei Lin watched the last of the light fade behind the jagged peaks to the west. She had 19 cents in her purse. The return fare to the city was an impossible sum. She had left the coast to escape an uncle who viewed her as a bargaining chip for his gambling debts, a man whose gaze made her skin crawl. The matrimonial advertisement had seemed like a lifeline. Now, standing in the freezing wind, she understood that lifelines could snap without warning. The depot grew silent. Through the frosted windows of the buildings along Main Street, she could see families gathering around tables, candles flickering, children pressing their noses against the glass to watch the snow. The town hummed with a warmth she could observe but not enter. She was not merely isolated. She was alien here, a stranger in a strange land, watching a play from the wings. Her stomach cramped with a fierce, twisting hunger. She had eaten nothing since yesterday's dawn, saving her meager coins for a future that no longer existed. The cold seeped through the thin fabric of her cheongsam. She picked up her bag and began walking, not because she had a destination, but because freezing to death on a station platform felt like a surrender she wasn't ready to make. She walked past a boarding house on Pine Street, but the rates posted in the window were far beyond her reach. She continued trudging through the deepening snow, her canvas shoes soaking through, her bag growing heavier with each block. She found herself on the edge of town where a small establishment called the Iron Skillet stood, lamplight glowing invitingly through its steamy windows. The sign indicated it was closing, but she saw movement inside. Her feet carried her to the window on instinct. Inside, she saw a man sitting alone at a corner table. He wore a heavy shearling coat and a wide-brimmed hat pushed back on his head. His face was weathered by wind and sun, and his hands moved with deliberate care as he cut into a beefsteak. A mound of mashed potatoes sat beside it, steam rising in the yellow light. He ate slowly, methodically, like a man who respected the food before him. The restaurant owner, a balding man with a white apron, appeared from the back, gesturing toward the door. Closing time. The rancher nodded but did not rush. Mei Lin stood there longer than she intended, transfixed by the simple, brutal reality of the food. She must have swayed, dizzy with exhaustion, because suddenly the man's head turned toward the window. His eyes met hers through the glass. She looked away immediately, shame flushing her cheeks, and began to hurry away, but the door opened, and a deep voice stopped her. "Miss!" He stood in the doorway, his silhouette backlit by the warm interior. "You waiting on someone?" "No," she said, her voice trembling slightly from the cold. He studied her for a moment, his gaze taking in the thin coat and the foreign cut of her dress. "They're closing, but there's still food. The kitchen made too much, as usual. I haven't the appetite for seconds." He didn't ask if she had money. He didn't ask why she was wandering alone on Christmas Eve. He simply gestured toward the warmth. Man inside is Arthur. Tell him Gideon Thorne said to bring out the extra plate.
Mei Lin hesitated.
Pride and hunger warred inside her chest. But there was something in Gideon's tone, matter-of-fact, void of pity, that made the offer bearable. It wasn't charity. It was logistics. Thank you, she whispered. Gideon nodded once and returned to his seat. Mei Lin entered the restaurant, the heat hitting her face like a physical caress. Arthur, a stout man with kind eyes, looked up from his sweeping. Mr. Thorne says, "There is an extra plate," she said, the English words feeling heavy on her tongue. Arthur smiled gently. "There usually is on Christmas Eve. Sit anywhere you like, miss." She chose a table near the potbelly stove, close enough to feel the heat but far enough from Gideon to offer him privacy. Within minutes, Arthur placed a plate before her identical to the rancher's. Steak, potatoes, carrots glazed in honey, and a thick slice of cornbread. The aroma nearly brought tears to her eyes. She ate slowly, forcing herself to maintain dignity, but each bite was a revelation. Across the room, Gideon Thorne continued his meal in silence, asking nothing of her. His presence was a steady anchor in the room, distant yet protective. When she finished, she sat with her hands folded in her lap. Arthur emerged with 2 mugs of coffee, setting one before her and one before Gideon. The coffee was strong and hot, and she wrapped her frozen fingers around the ceramic. "Thank you for the meal," she said to the room, to Arthur, to Gideon. "I will repay you when I am able." "No need," Gideon said, taking a sip of his coffee. "We all stumble. It's the getting up that counts." The simplicity of it disarmed her. No questions about her heritage, no judgment about her poverty. Just an acknowledgement that hardship was a universal language. Arthur began banking the fire. "You got somewhere to stay tonight, miss? The snow is piling up." "Not yet," she admitted. Arthur and Gideon exchanged a look. Then Arthur spoke. "My cousin Sarah runs a boarding house on Maple Street. Widow. Raises her little girl alone. She keeps a room for travelers short on funds, a work exchange arrangement. You help with the cooking and cleaning, you get a warm bed." "I can work," Mei Lin said quickly. "I am not afraid of hard work." "Didn't figure you were," Arthur said. He sketched a map on a piece of butcher paper. 2 blocks north, 1 east. White house with a green door. "Tell her Arthur sent you." Mei Lin took the paper. "Thank you." As she gathered her bag, Gideon stood up, putting on his hat. "Cold walk. I'm headed that direction." They walked through the snow-muffled streets. Windows glowed with candlelight, and the sound of a choir practicing drifted from the church on the hill. Gideon matched his long stride to hers, taking her heavy bag without asking. "You come far?" he asked after a long silence. "San Francisco," she answered. "Long way. For what, if you don't mind my asking?" She told the truth. "A marriage arrangement." The man changed his mind. Gideon was quiet, their boots crunching in the fresh snow. "His loss, I expect." The words were simple, offering no false flattery, just a statement of fact. "What about you?" she asked. "What brings a rancher to town on Christmas Eve?" "Got a place about 10 miles west. Came in for supplies. Happened to be tonight," he paused. "Not much for celebrating alone." Mei Lin understood then that loneliness recognized no borders. A man could own land and cattle and still find himself eating supper in an empty restaurant on a holy night. The White House with the green door appeared like a beacon. Sarah Jenkins answered the knock, a woman in her 30s with tired eyes but a warm smile. A little girl, perhaps 6 years old, peered around her skirts. "Arthur sent word you might come," Sarah said after Gideon made the introductions. "Come in out of the snow." Gideon set down the bag. "I'll be going." "Stay for coffee, Gideon," Sarah offered. "It's Christmas Eve." He hesitated, looking at Mei Lin, then nodded. "Just coffee." They sat in the kitchen while the little girl, Lily, offered them ginger cookies. Mei Lin watched Gideon with the child. The way his harsh features softened, the way he listened to her chatter with genuine interest. Sarah mentioned the arrangement, Mei Lin said. I can wash, mend, cook. I will work hard. I need the help, Sarah said. I take in laundry for the minors. It's too much for one set of hands. She looked at Mei Lin closely. You running from something or toward something? I am not running anymore, Mei Lin said softly. The thing I was moving toward. It disappeared. Sarah nodded, pulling a letter from her apron pocket. This came 3 days ago. Addressed to a bride arriving from San Francisco postmaster gave it to me to hold. Mei Lin took the envelope. Her name was written in a cramped hand. She opened it, reading while the room went quiet. It was from Horace Pembry's sister. Horace was dead. A tunnel collapse at his mine 2 weeks ago. He is dead, Mei Lin said, her voice steady. The man I came to marry. He died before the telegram was sent. She felt a strange lightness. She had never known Horace, never loved him. The tragedy was his, not hers. She had lost a future that was only a business transaction. I'm sorry, Sarah said. Gideon said nothing, but he refilled her coffee cup. The gesture was grounding. The days turned into weeks, the winter holding the town in a grip of ice. Mei Lin fell into a rhythm at the boarding house. She woke before dawn, her hands raw from scrubbing laundry in the copper tubs, but she found peace in the work. Lily took a liking to her, fascinated by Mei Lin's stories of the ocean and the city. Gideon came to town every Saturday. He always had a practical excuse, nails, grain, tools, but he always ended up at Sarah's kitchen table. He fixed broken shutters, chopped wood for the stove, and brought rock candy for Lily. One Saturday in late January, he arrived looking more weary than usual. After supper, Mei Lin found him on the porch, staring out at the frozen street. Today was her birthday, he said, his voice rough. My wife's. She would have been 28. I did not know you were married, Mei Lin said, wrapping her shawl tighter. 3 years ago, fever took her. We had been married 8 months. He looked at his hands. I woke up this morning and it felt like she died yesterday. Grief has no calendar, Mei Lin said softly. I lost my parents when I was young, then my home. You build new rooms inside yourself to hold the sadness, so you can keep living in the rest of the house. Gideon looked at her, really looked at her, his eyes reflecting the moonlight. Is that what you're doing here? Building new rooms? Trying to. He reached out, his hand brushing hers. You're doing a fine job of it, Mei Lin. February brought a thaw that turned the roads to mud, then a freeze that turned them to iron. The bond between them grew, unspoken but undeniable. On a Tuesday in March, Gideon arrived unexpectedly. I didn't expect you until the weekend, Mei Lin said, wiping flour from her hands as she opened the door. I need to say something, Gideon said, stepping into the kitchen. He took off his hat, his fingers gripping the brim. I've been thinking about spring. My ranch needs work. A woman's touch, maybe. You want to hire me? Mei Lin asked. No, he looked her in the eye. That was the coward's plan. I want to know if there is a possibility of something more between us. Mei Lin's heart hammered against her ribs. More. I wake up wondering if you'll be here. I see things and want to tell you about them. I know it's soon, and I know you came here for a different life. But
I-am afraid, Mei Lin confessed.
Every time I reach for safety, it vanishes. If I let myself want this, want you, I am afraid the sky will fall. Gideon stepped closer, though he did not touch her. I can't promise the sky won't fall. I can't promise I won't fail you. But I can promise that right now what I feel is real. And I'm not going anywhere. Is it enough? She asked. Just this moment. I think we could find out together. Mei Lin looked at this man, this rugged, quiet rancher who had shared his plate when she had nothing. She stepped forward and rested her forehead against his chest. His arms came around her, careful and strong. Spring arrived with the sound of dripping water and the song of returning birds. On the first warm day, Mei Lin walked with Gideon along the muddy road leading west. They crested a hill and his ranch spread out before them. A modest house, a barn needing paint, and a creek rushing with snowmelt. "It's not much," Gideon said, "but the land is honest." Mei Lin looked at the horizon. She thought of the frightened woman on the train platform, the one who thought she needed a stranger to save her. She realized now that she had saved herself. She had survived the winter. What she felt for Gideon wasn't a transaction. It was a choice. "Show me the creek," she said, smiling. He took her hand, his grip warm and sure. Together, they walked down the hill toward the water, toward a future that was unwritten, leaving the ghosts of the past to fade into the melting snow. The story of Mei Lin and Gideon reminds us that even in our darkest winters, when we feel most isolated and devoid of hope, kindness can bloom in unexpected places. It teaches us that true strength isn't just about enduring hardship, but about having the courage to open our hearts again after loss. We learn that family isn't always defined by blood, but by the people who offer us a seat at their table when we are hungry and cold. Ultimately, it is a testament to the power of resilience and the beautiful truth that we are never as alone as we think we are. What did you think of Mei Lin's decision to stay in Silver Creek? Do you think she made the right choice by taking a chance on Gideon? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story of love and perseverance in the Wild West, please subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming tales. Thank you for watching.